the current pace, we are on track to encounter close to 1 million illegal aliens at our southern border this year. Our capacity is already severely restrained, but these increases will overwhelm the system entirely. This is not a manufactured crisis. This is truly an emergency.
Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen making the case for the president's national emergency declaration after staggering new numbers on increased apprehensions at the border. But despite this, opposition to the president's move seems to be snowballing in the Senate. Joining us now, Senate Majority Whip John Thune. Senator, good morning to you. Thank you for coming on. Her testimony or hearing continues on Capitol Hill as we speak. She's going to continue to face questions, obviously on the emergency declaration, family separations at the border. A lot of tough questions going to be thrown the Secretary's way this morning.
That's right, but the facts are there is a crisis at the border, and the numbers that she's putting out that are more recent show that the numbers are spiking. We were averaging about 60,000 illegal border crossings every month. This last month, that was 76,000. Of course, we know in that group you've got drug dealers and traffickers and gang members. You also have a lot of unaccompanied children and families with children coming across the border, which creates the humanitarian crisis that we're seeing too. So she's speaking to the emergency that exists. I think we all agree with that, which is why the president is correct to push Congress as hard as he possibly can to try and get funding and the resources that are necessary to address it.
She called the current projections dire when it comes to the numbers that we're seeing at the border. She said the agency is now on track to apprehend more migrants crossing illegally in the first 6 months of the year than the entirety of 2017. She talked about that being truly an emergency and making the case that this is not a manufactured crisis. Is she going to convince her critics in that hearing room this morning?
I don't know that she'll convince the Democrats in the House. They seem to have made up their minds. And honestly, we wouldn't be having this conversation, Sandra, if it weren't for the hatred the Democrats in the Congress have for the president, which has blinded them to the need to address what is a major crisis. And, you know, she needs resources down there, manpower, technology, all the things that are necessary from a national security standpoint to ensure that we're protecting the country, but also to address what has become a major humanitarian crisis at the border. And so, like I said, the facts are there. The evidence is all there. She's just got an audience that is, I think, unfortunately blinded by the hatred they have for this president.
So fair to say you still fully support the president in his move to declare a national emergency to secure the funding?
We're going to vote on that here in the Senate. I, like a lot of my colleagues, have had questions. We're still asking those questions about it. But we think that he needs to get as many resources as he can. Congress has appropriated some money. There are some other funds that he can tap through reprogramming that enable him to address the crisis. The emergency declaration is the last resort. And we have, of course, a number of our senators who've expressed concerns about the precedent that sets for a future potential Democratic president. But nonetheless, everybody in the Senate agrees. I shouldn't say everybody, but every Republican in the Senate agrees that this is a crisis, that it needs to be addressed, and that the president needs resources to address it.
Meanwhile, a lot of talk still about some of these big ideas being thrown out by members of Congress, Democrats, in the Medicare for All plan. Some cold water being thrown on that idea by an unlikely source, the House Democrats' new campaign chief, talking about the Medicare for All plan, saying it's one idea and warning that its estimated $33 trillion price tag was, quote, a little scary. Interesting to hear that from him.
Well, it's a recognition of reality, and you know, these people are living in fantasy land if they think that a government-run healthcare system at a cost of $33 trillion, a Green New Deal that, again, somewhere between $51 and $93 trillion, which ends up being about $650,000 per family, per household in this country over the next 10 years. These are all ideas that Democrats are advancing, and I think it demonstrates the hard left turn that their party has taken here in Congress and the socialist ideas that are now being advanced by their party. And I think that the American people, realize that this is something they're going to end up having to pay for. And when they realize that, they're going to think this is a really bad idea and that this Green New Deal is a really raw deal for them.
Yeah, the estimates aren't there's not a really big range. I mean, all the estimates are 32 to 33 trillion dollars. By the way, that was Sherry Bustos of Illinois, the chairwoman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. So that was her voice on that. I've only got a few seconds left, but this quickly, really seems like it's shaping up to be the 2020 target for Republicans, taking on ideas like that, along with some of the socialism ideas that we've seen thrown out by some of the newer members of Congress. Final thoughts, Senator.
Right, absolutely. This is going to be a great contrast in 2020. This is a Democrat Party that's been co-opted by their hard left and which is putting forward ideas that are in direct contradiction with everything that this country is about. The freedom, the individualism, giving people more power and more authority to control their own lives and their own destinies, or having the government run it through central planning. And that's
Senator
what the Democrats
John
are
Thune,
advancing.
great to have you on this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Sandra.